to do a video about basically what I experienced like in November of 2019. It was basically a very horrible a very horrible emergency room experience. And um what I want you guys to get from this video is basically how to advocate for yourself. And this is a perfect example of doing that. Back in 2019, I went to the emergency room because I was in crisis. And I also was, I, I've had, I was having panic attacks like every 30-40 minutes, and it was not controlled. So I went to the emergency room. And when I went to the emergency room, I experienced something that patients, mental health patients, should not have to experience, especially if they are in crisis. I went to the hospital to look for help, to get help, and I got met with a very aggressive, very mean nurse tech, and also a very mean social worker at the hospital in the emergency room. And I was wanting to go to inpatient because I was in crisis, and I was also having some physical issues as well. That's why I went to the emergency room. And I originally went to the emergency room because I was having chest pain, and I was having tachycardia, which is fast heartbeat tachycardia. And so I went to the emergency room, just to rule everything out. And as I went back to the room, I also asked for a social worker because I wanted to go to inpatient as well. So after that, this social worker came in, and she was very aggressive to the point where it's like no one should be treated that way. And what had happened was, I asked her to, I asked her if I can go to inpatient because I was in crisis and I was not having good thoughts like at all. And so we was talking about that. I had a family member in the room, and I was sitting in bed. I was laying in bed. I was hooked up to heart monitor, to oxygen, to blood pressure cuff, just to so that they can monitor, and I was having a little bit of anxiety that day, but also I was having like physical health issues. And one thing that I don't like is, like, whenever I do go to the emergency room, I don't like it that, it doesn't happen to everyone, and I hope that it doesn't, but it's like, it's kind of like I feel that I get like misunderstood, or either I get like pushed away, or either I get like just shunned away because like I have anxiety, and I'm not being taken serious because I have anxiety. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that's the right thing to like do. And they would, like, this nurse was just like standing there and just like folding his arms and just staring at me. And it's like, why are you staring at me for? Like, it's kind of like he was like silently like judging me, like I because I do have anxiety, like I can't control that. Like I have anxiety and I feel like sometimes they silently judge me for that. But anyway, um so this social worker came in, and um she told my family member, she was like, and she was talking to me too. She was like, well, why do you want to go to inpatient? This is the social worker that I'm talking about. She was like, well, why do you want to go to inpatient? Oh, well, inpatient hasn't worked before, so why do you want to go again? You know, she actually said that. And another thing is, like, she was like, she told my family member, she was like, oh, well, why does she want to go to inpatient? Oh, well, she's probably going to deal with, because I was talking about, like, my anxiety, my PTSD, my, you know, like, my depression, you know, and everything else that I deal with. And she was like, well, she's probably going to, she said this to my family member and me. She was like, she's probably going to deal with this for the rest of her life. And so basically, she was basically saying, like, to deal with it. Okay, first of all, let's just say if I do have to deal with this for the rest of my life, let's just say that. You do not speak that over somebody's life. You really don't. You don't speak that over somebody's life. You just really don't. I mean, you don't know. Like, it's like, she's like, oh, well, she's probably going to have this for the rest of her life, you know? And it's like, why would you say something like that? Why would you say something like that to a patient that's in crisis? I'm not even, like, I haven't even got to the half of it. So she said that to me, and then she was basically talking about my grandmother, and we was talking about my grandmother because that was bothering me too. And she was basically like saying, oh, well, so, like, when did your grandma pass away? Like, when did she do this? When did she do that? You know, she was talking about my grandmother and her passing away and her death as I was having a major panic attack. Okay, my heart rate at that moment was 160. It was 160, and she was literally talking about my grandmother's death and her passing away was while I was having a panic attack. That's like basically you're fighting this is the best way to describe that moment. Basically, okay, here's a scenario. You're fighting somebody, okay, and then, you know, you push them down to the ground, and when they're down on the ground, you're still kicking them. Like, that's the same thing. Like, that's the same thing that she was doing to me. Like, I was literally down on the ground, you know, and she was talking to me about something that was literally making me more nervous. Like, why would you even talk about somebody's family member that just like passed away? And it was clearly making me more nervous, and clearly my heart rate was going higher. And she asked them, the nurse and the social worker was asking my family member to leave the room because apparently SI patients, basically, which is suicidal ideation patients, they can't have visitors, which I, it's like, it's kind of like, okay, like I was having a panic attack in that moment, and I was also not feeling good. So it's kind of like, why can I have my family member there? Like, and it's like, I mean, they kind of made me calm down, you know, but they wanted her out the room. They wanted my family member out the room. So, and I knew something was about to go down when my family member went out the room, And it did. Okay. Um, After my family member went out the room, I asked my family member to stay in the waiting room. And at this point, I was in the room with this social worker that was being very aggressive and that was being very mean. I was in the room with her. And she kept on saying to me, well, why do you want to go to inpatient? You know, and I kept telling her, I said, ma'am, I just want to go to get better, okay? And it's like, why would you question me? Why do I want to go to inpatient? I want to get better, and I want to, that's what it's for, okay? That's what it's for. If you're in crisis, you go there, and she was just repeating that, oh, well, it hasn't worked, so why are you going again? You know, I did not like understand that like at all. Um, and also, I was telling her what hospital that I want to go to, because I feel as a patient is my right, and yes, it is my right as a patient to tell her which hospital that I want to go to. I have a preferred hospital to go to when I'm in crisis. She wanted to send me to the exact hospital, to the psychiatric ward that my grandma passed away in. And how she knew that is we was talking about my grandmother, and that's how she knew that. And she wanted to send me to the exact hospital that my grandma passed away in. And I think that was very kind of mean and evil for her to do that. I said, well, why would you send me to a hospital where my PTSD will literally go into overdrive and literally would like that's a horrible. Why would you even like want to send me there? And she sat down. She sat down and she told me that, well, we're gonna send you somewhere. Oh well, you can't you can't pick which hospital to go to. And I said I want to go to a hospital that's in my state. It doesn't matter what hospital at first, because she wasn't hearing me before. And I was like, oh well, just send me like either like the state I'm in, or either like in Kansas or whatever. And then um she was like, okay. And then she walked out, and then she came back, and um, she was like, well, I said I want to go to the hospital that I want to go to. And she said, well, Asia, you're not going to manipulate this situation. She literally told me that I'm not going to manipulate the situation. And she told me that, well, if you don't go to this hospital, oh, well, we're going to sign an affidavit on you. I was like, ma'am, I was telling you which hospital that I want to go to because that's my right as a patient. Okay? Like whenever I go in the ambulance or whatever, that's the first thing they ask me. That's the first thing they ask you, which hospital you want to go to. Okay? That's the first thing they ask you. Okay? So as a patient, I have a right as a patient to go to which hospital that I want to go to, you know, and she's like, oh, well, you have to wait here, for like a couple of days because they don't have a bed. Ma'am, I've been into psychiatric hospitals before, okay? Um, they discharge patients every single day. It's like clockwork, okay? One goes in and one goes out, okay? And I know that sounded like a little bit bad what I just said, but I mean that's true. They discharge patients every single day. So it's like I'm not going to be sitting there in the emergency room like all day. I mean, and she was just making it so difficult. She was so aggressive, so aggressive, so mean. And when my family member left out, one more thing, when my family member left out, um they there was a tech that sat outside of my room, and I said, "Ma'am, can you sit with me because because I'm having a panic attack and I'm kind of nervous and I'm kind of scared." And she was like, "Well, some people don't." Well, this one nurse came in, and I told this tech, I said, "Can the this nurse, I said, can the tech sit with me in here because I just want some company." And this one nurse was like, "Oh, well, some techs don't like to sit with SI patients, mental health patients, suicidal ideation patients because they're violent." Okay, excuse me, what? We're violent? We're violent? Are you serious right now? That's. I'm very offended by that. Like, I am very offended by that. What she said about, you know, patients can be, we can be violent, some patients can be violent. Like, what? Like, she didn't want to sit with me because she thought I was a violent person. Like, that's so rude. Like, that's so disrespectful. And, like, I really hate when they don't call you by your name. Like, they call you a SI patient. Like, please stop. Please just stop. Like, I mean, don't do that. Like, I don't like that. Like, I just don't. Like, that's disrespectful. Like, I'm not self-harm. I'm not suicidal ideation. I'm not, I'm not depression. I'm not anxiety. Like, that's not my name. Like, don't call me that. Like, it's so irritating. Like, and I was telling them, somebody called me. Okay, but anyway, I was telling them which hospital that I want to go to, and this social worker got so mad, so angry because I wanted to go to the hospital that I want to go to, and they know me there and I know them, and I feel comfortable there. So guys, I just want to conclude this video of, like, I just want to wrap up this video with, guys, when you're in that position, when you're in positions like that with a very aggressive, like, person, always please communicate, like, what you want and what you need, and what that wasn't the first time that I experienced something like that, and hopefully it will be the last. But I mean, when you're dealing with healthcare and like, dealing with your health, and you're going to run into um some people like that. Not all people is like that, and that is one of the positives about this. Not all people and not all professionals um, are like that. So that's the good thing about it. And yeah, so I just want to wrap up this video with, like, always, always, always advocate for yourself, and always, like, like, speak up about, like, what you need and what you want, like, especially when you're, trying to communicate with another healthcare professional, and, like, don't be, like, afraid to, like, speak up about that stuff, because, they, like, they need to hear you, and they need to, like, they need to understand what you're trying to say, um and I know that it could be, like, I know that it can be nerve-wracking, because my grandma was my advocate at one time, um and I was too, but she was always there for me, when I was feeling misunderstood, or I was not like, I felt like I wasn't heard, and she was right there with me to, back me up and everything. But now that she's not here, I have to do that, and I have to communicate clearly. I have to like speak up, to them, about what I need, and what is going down, and what's happening. So I wanted you guys to let you guys know that, you know it's okay to speak up, and it's okay to like let them know, like, hey, this is what I need, this is what's happening. So but yeah, but I hope you guys do not ever have to experience that. But I know other patients are experiencing that, and that makes me sad, and that makes me that doesn't that makes me really sad. And but yeah, but I just wanted to share that, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.